Welcome, everybody, to a new perspective. I am Tim Sutton, a law enforcement officer in the state of Virginia. And if you haven't joined us before, I do a lot of work, still active law enforcement, but I do a lot of work in the disability community, working with families, working with individuals. I prefer to call them different abilities because it's amazing what people with disabilities are capable of. And but tonight's a little bit different than the normal shows I do, bringing on people who are doing some amazing things in the special populations. I was introduced to a gentleman through my work, and this gentleman that I'm going to bring on used to be a homicide detective for the Richmond Bureau of Police here in Virginia. Had a 20-year career with him, and we ended up retiring. And he ended up coming to my agency to work for a sheriff's office. And I got to meet him as he was going through some training for our department, and jumped in the car with him and rode around the county for a little bit and just carried on conversation. And it was amazing to see, wow, here's another one who sees the importance of what we do in law enforcement, that we are problem solvers. We're out here for everybody in the community, not just certain people. And knowing he had been a homicide detective for years, I know a lot of times that stuff will taint you and you get sarcastic, cynical about the job. But he was so excited to be in that uniform, riding around the county, meeting people, shaking hands, waving. And it was a breath of fresh air to me just to see his demeanor. And I think his appreciation for the community and appreciation for the job and how to bring both of those together. And then I subsequently found out he's an author. He's got his own audio podcasts, the Danny and Park Good News podcasts. If you get a chance, check some of those out. But I wanted to bring James Baynes on to talk about his career, what led him to do what he does with the writing novels, doing his podcast, and just all the things he's doing to bring the communities together, because that's what we are trying to do here on A New Perspective, is give you a new perspective of things out there, these different abilities, and hopefully open your eyes and realize officers out there it's not what you see on the news every night. There are officers out there who care, and we want to take care of the community. So I'd like to bring on Jamie. How you doing, Jamie?
I'm good. How are you, Tim?
Doing just fine. I guess
Good.
that was somewhat how we met each other, and we have talked a few times over the past few months. And let me ask you a question. What was your? I mean, it's been many years, but why did you originally get into law enforcement?
I always remember the shows like this is probably gonna date myself. The T.J. Hooker and Adam 12 and all those shows like that. And so you'd always see police officers helping people, going out there in the community and just doing that stuff. And obviously the car chases and all that kind of stuff. So that's what really turned me on to it. That's why I wanted to do it. I grew up in the city of Richmond. I went to the Richmond Public Schools,
Oh, okay.
and that's really where I wanted to start my police career.
Wow. Okay. So you guys started there. I know me. I was going through college working at an amusement park security, trying to get my feet wet, decide whether or not that was something I really wanted to get into or not. And once you got on Richmond, I think we had that discussion in the car. How many years did you spend in uniform?
9 years in First Precinct up in Churchill.
Okay. Okay. And then you got pulled into I guess, investigations
I
detective.
did. I did. The first 2 years was youth services, and that was crimes against kids. Just so many crimes committed against kids. It's unbelievable, absolutely
Right.
unbelievable. And from then I went to homicide, where I spent 16 years.
Do you feel like going to, I mean, I know it's difficult enough dealing with crimes against children. Did you ever feel like there was a point in time in what you were dealing with that your perception got skewed a little bit because there's so much negativity that you're dealing with?
You mean with dealing with the crimes against kids? What I finally
Yeah, the
got out of it?
kids and the homicide and just the negative things you see day in and day out. Did you ever feel yourself headed in that cynical direction, or were you able to keep yourself really focused on being out there and making a difference?
I was able to stay focused, and the reason being is because you know, in the homicide side of it, generally the people you meet, when you meet them, they're at the very worst part of their lives. They if they ever see you again later, they connect you with the worst time of their life. However, when you talk to people, and that's all kinds of people, you realize how good they are, how everybody feels the same way when they lose a loved one, and that really brings people together. And so I never got cynical about it. I think I was there to help people, all kinds of people, with whatever they needed, and I was there for them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Right. Well, I think it's a matter of empathy and understanding and realizing everybody goes through these things. And I always try to tell younger officers, look, when you're out there doing your job, representing your agency, you don't know if you're going to come across the poorest of the poor or the richest of the rich, but you treat everybody with respect. And because you don't know when you may be in that position yourself one day, and to have somebody come in, and even though it's a terrible crisis situation, but to come in and spend time with you and actually care about you and what you're dealing with, it means the world to them. And I think sometimes officers, we just get complacent, we shut down, we don't want to get personally involved. You just go in there and do your job. But to be able to take that extra time to spend with the family and let them know, no, you're not just a number. You're somebody I care about personally, and I want to find out what's going on. We want to resolve this. I think it's huge to these families, and I commend you for being able to do a career out there with all of that. And like I said, when I met you, did the ride with you, man, it was like a breath of fresh air. I said, man, he's seen it. He has seen some stuff, but he's still got such a positive attitude. And you were thrilled to death because you were out there riding around. People were waving at you. You were stopping and talking to people. And that's our law enforcement. That's what we're supposed to be doing. So that's kind of what really tipped me off.
I mean, that's what it is. It's like, I've never gotten tired of law enforcement. I've never gotten tired of talking to people. You could see 1,444 people,
right,
a day, and still, I still enjoy it. I still truly enjoy it because I think law enforcement is a calling. I think it is one of the most noble professions in the world,
right,
regardless of the rhetoric I think that gets put out there.
Yeah. And so, fast forward, I guess it was last year. You were working for Richmond when all the riots and everything was going on and all.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you take away from that in dealing with that aspect? Because it was a highly tense, stressful situation. And I know that all law enforcement there, you kind of had your hands tied and weren't able to do your job as you were trained to do. How did you make it through that? And I know it was frustrating, but I mean, what was you pulled from the inside of you to help deal with that situation?
It was very frustrating. The first night of, I guess if you want to call it the unrest, we were actually working at headquarters, and we were on the rooftop, and we could actually see the crowd forming around police headquarters. And there were probably only maybe 8 or 9 crowd management team officers out there in their riot gear, and they were surrounded by people. People were throwing bricks at them just for no reason, just because they were police officers. People would be looking up at us on the top deck and giving us the finger and saying these things to us. And again, all just because we were police officers. If you probably interviewed 99 out of 100 police officers, they would absolutely think what happened in Minneapolis was a crime and had no reason and did not support it one bit of what happened. And I think that was a time where we could have come together, law enforcement, everybody, and just to talk about it. But I think bad actors got involved and a whole lot of stuff got blown out of proportion. And so, I saw people who had no idea what the police did, threaten us, threaten our lives, threaten our families' lives. And yet people in the community, I remember specifically, we're at the scene of a homicide down in Fulton. And, all the stuff was still going on in the city, in, the downtown area. And the community came out and they said, we support you guys. We support you. We support you. And that helped out a whole lot. One of the most telling things I think about it was I was also working when the 2 Richmond officers got shot right in the middle of the entire, the protests going on.
Right.
A year later, most of the local news media would bring up the anniversary of how the riot started, but only one of them took the time to interview those 2 officers who were shot that night just doing their job.
Right.
So that I always felt a little let down by a lot of the news media. I felt let down by a lot of the citizens of Richmond who don't come into contact with the police, have no idea what we do. One of the most telling things that I saw was there was a church in the north side of Richmond who, right after all this stuff was happening, they started posting these signs on their property saying, we stand against white supremacy. And I was thinking, as a church, why do you have to say that? Haven't you always
Right.
stood against that? Why are you saying that? Why are you saying that now?
Right.
So to me, it was just virtue signaling, and it really just kind of got under my skin.
Well, I can understand that. I can understand that. So when did you leave the city? What month?
I actually left in September of 2020, which
Okay,
was
September
7 months
2020.
after
So you've
last.
been out here quite a while. So what motivated you to go ahead and retire and leave the city and then go elsewhere?
I was actually planning on staying with the city. I left the city after 27 and a half years. I was
Wow.
planning on staying with the city for 31 years and moving to the other agency that you and I are both with now. I've always wanted to be a part of that agency.
Right.
The unrest, the riots, the way the pendulum is swinging toward the police just kind of hastened my departure. They were arresting police officers for stuff that happened during the unrest,
Right.
and I didn't want to be a pawn in what I thought could be
Right.
stuff going on in the city. And
One
you
simple
had
thing. Yeah.
you had council people talking about defunding the police, and yet when the crime started to go up, those same council people said, "Where are the police? Why aren't they here?"
Right.
So it was this very frustrating situation. I love the city of Richmond. I love the city of Richmond Police Department. I love the officers and detectives I work with.
Right. Well, that's good. Well, I mean, we're blessed to have you, and like I said, I really enjoyed our short time talking and learning your perspective of all these things. And and I shared with you what I do, and you actually went through some training, the tracking system, to help go find people who with cognitive issues go missing. You were very
It's
interested in.
amazing. What you do is amazing with that. Before I came to this agency, I had never heard of it.
Right.
And that's what I think is so great about the agency that we work for. It's so geared to community and community
Right.
policing.
Yeah, and then we luckily, we jumped on the bandwagon back in 2003, first in the Richmond area to actually be involved in a tracking program to help us find people who go missing and with cognitive issues and bring them home. But it also allows us to be able to meet with those families, those caregivers, whether it's autism, other intellectual disability, developmental disability, or Alzheimer's, dementia. But we get to interact with those families and become a part of their family.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because we had a few officers come from the city who are working with us now. And it's just neat because they're looking at our community going, wow, these people actually like us.
Mm-hmm.
And they're
Absolutely.
inviting us to come to this function and that function, and they're feeding us and waving at us. And, you go through a drive-through and you find out the person in front of you paid for everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's,
Mm-hmm.
I know it's a different world, but it's neat to see you guys having dealt with what you dealt with in those circumstances in the city, coming out to the county and seeing a whole different aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. When you've got the podcast, we briefly mentioned that at the beginning. When did you start doing your podcast? Were you still with the city, or had you left the city by then?
I'd left the city. I started doing it in August of last year.
Okay.
And I started it because, there's so much negativity out there in the news media, in social media, everywhere. However, if you look, you don't really have to look that deep to find positive, positive
Right.
stuff, positivity. A lot of the podcasts that I do are with random people who I see on Instagram or I see on Facebook, and I reach out to them and I say, "Hey, I kind of like what you're saying. Would you like to come on the podcast and talk about
Right.
it?" And almost every person has agreed to do so. And these, people I'm talking to are from South Africa and from Africa, from Great Britain,
Wow.
all walks of life, all having something positive to share. So it's out there. It just seems like the negative is the stuff that gets the most attention.
And you and I found out had a common link because a few weeks ago, I had Emily Morrissey with Emily's Bracelets, as well as her brother
Absolutely.
PJ. And I had
Absolutely.
them on the show, and I discovered that they had been on your show. And I
Mhm.
was like, oh, wow, that's a neat connect right there. And we actually had her, we had a fundraiser. I'm working with some individuals, and Jeff Katz with WRVA Radio. We formed actually a nonprofit called Better Understanding, betterunderstanding.org. It's a nonprofit to help raise awareness and advocacy for individuals with disability. Emily, actually, we had her a week ago Friday throw the first pitch out at the Diamond for the
I
Flying
saw that.
Squirrels game.
I
And
saw that.
it's just neat to see how all these things connect. Again, it's a feel good story. It's a positive story, but our only media interest was WRVA's Jeff Katz. I talked to him
Hmm.
on his show from the Diamond about it, and he's been a huge supporter of what we're trying to do. And I don't know if you're aware, but he actually was a police officer in Philadelphia for 5 years.
Yeah, I've been on his show.
Yeah. So yeah, he's a serious advocate for all of us in blue, and he's a good friend to have there. So tell us about the novels. When and what prompted you writing?
I started writing novels about 3 years ago, and they are it's based in Richmond. One character is a detective, one character is a patrol officer, and they kind of work together. I've always been an avid reader. I've been reading since probably I was going to college,
Wow.
and what I found was, as the time goes by, a lot of my favorite authors would either sound fake in their writing style, and the books I'm reading are like thrillers and police novels
Right.
and the such. Um, However, one of the common themes in all these novels was they always had a corrupt cop in there somewhere. And these are authors who are supposedly either main characters or cops, and that really just got under my skin. I got sick
Right.
of seeing it. I got sick of hearing about it. The
Oh, wow.
authors to me seemed to be less real. So I said, you know what? Let me give a go at it. And I wrote my first one,
Hmm.
and I thought it was fantastic. Then I gave it to people to read, and like, golly, there's like a million typos in this Joker. So I wound up rewriting it like 3 or 4 different times. And then I just got on a sprint, and I started writing novel after novel after novel. And it really
Wow.
lets me show the positive aspects of police work, how
Hmm.
people deal with each other. And Tim, a lot of the a lot of the stuff you see out there are, if you listen to the news and believe the news, it's saying, oh, the races can't stand each other or the genders can't stand each other. But as well as I do, the police department is black, white, Hispanic, Asian, gay, straight,
Right.
and we all laugh with each other. We all joke with each other, and we have fun with each other, and we make fun of our differences,
Right.
and we use that in jokes. And I think that's something that gets lost. It seems like today with maybe this more youthful generation. So there's a lot of that
Hmm.
in my books as well. It's just because we're all the same underneath the skin, and we all like to laugh, we all like to joke, and it's all good natured.
Well, I tell people, in our line of work, if every single officer had the same interests and the same passions, it would be a very boring, difficult place to work. We've got
Sure, it would be.
officers who enjoy working traffic accidents. They love traffic. Then you've got other officers who want to be out there locking every criminal up. You've got other officers that want to, my passion is dealing with special populations, interacting and helping them. And yeah, there's some officers out there who think our job in law enforcement, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there are some that think our complete job should be arresting people and writing tickets.
You're right. You're right.
And honestly, they're the ones I don't want interacting with the families that I deal with, because they'll
It's
go
true.
in and they're mad because they got to go there and deal with the problem or change that
Hmm.
battery in their transmitter because their loved one wanders off and they don't want to be there. And
Hmm.
if everybody didn't have their own little specialty, I think it'd be a pretty boring place to work.
Just like the world,
Yeah.
just like society. If everybody was the same, it would be very boring. And the police department is just like a microcosm of the world. Basically, it represents the community that we serve. And so you have good people, good bad cops, funny cops, not so funny cops. Um, but I'm telling you, I've been around cops for almost 30 years now, and they are my favorite people. Absolutely,
Yeah.
they are the least prejudiced, um, least hateful, funniest people I've ever met in my entire life.
But that's not what the media is going to tell you. That's the sad
Is
part.
absolutely not what the media is going to
It's
tell you.
constantly a uphill battle trying to battle that. And what you do and what I'm trying to do. And I've got a lot of people that work with me and help me with my stuff, that with working with these families, and they're out there. They are out
Hmm.
there, and I ask them to stay out there. And when you find, I have found out within the past couple months, I've been interacting with a father who has a 19-year-old daughter with autism, and she's been having some issues, and they live in an apartment. So there's been some noise complaints because when she gets upset, she's out in the hallway crying and yelling. And I found out that 3 or 4 of my officers on their days off. You got a dad with a 19-year-old, mom died a few years ago. I've got officers I found out were going on their days off and taking them groceries.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to hear about that anywhere else.
The most compassionate, caring people you'll ever meet. You will ever meet.
And
And
it's
I think
just,
the most real people.
yeah.
Officers are the most real people in this world.
Well, I think some of us realize that at any point in time, we could be that other person.
Oh,
And we
absolutely.
could be down on our luck. And, I've
Absolutely.
told people before, even, and I tend to believe you're the same way. When I arrested somebody, and, I've been a supervisor, so it's been a long time since I've actually arrested somebody. I've put handcuffs on them and passed them off. But
Yeah,
when
we
I
like
arrested
that,
that
by the
person,
way.
it's like you still show them the respect that's due.
Absolutely.
And by the time I got to the jail or whatever, I wanted that person to be my best friend. Because I
Absolutely.
said, one day I may run across them again. And I
And they
may be
might
in
help you out if you're
I may be
getting
in a
if you're getting in
ditch getting
trouble.
my head beat in.
Yes.
And when they see me, they could do one of three things. They could look over and go, "Oh, I know him. I'm not helping," and just drive on by. Or they could see him and say, "Oh yeah, I remember him. He was, he treated me. Get out and help me."
Mm-hmm.
Or if they got a bad taste in the mouth, they may jump out of the car and help that other person
You got
put
it.
me down.
You
So it's
got it.
all in how you interact and how you handle yourself. That gun and the badge does not mean you're any better than anybody else.
Nope, not at all.
And I've got a gold badge because I'm a supervisor, but deputies and all, they have silver badges. And I'll tell you straight up, that gold badge does not make me any better than any other deputy. It means I have a different job to do.
Mm-hmm.
But none of us, by any way, shape, or means, is any better than the other.
Right.
And I think understanding that, just like citizens, that badge doesn't mean I'm better than any citizen. It
Mm-hmm.
means I have a different job to do, and I have more opportunities to get my butt kicked than the average person.
Right.
But
Absolutely.
I'm not better than anybody else. But like the stuff I teach, it's difficult sometimes to get into those audiences to be able to teach what I teach. But I know that uniform has been instrumental in getting me in certain areas to be able to speak and really open some eyes.
Mm-hmm.
So, but no, I admire what you're doing. I wish I'd known what you were doing way back when, because you need to be out there. And that was the big thing about I wanted you on the show because I want people to hear what you're doing. And
Well,
hopefully,
and to hear what you're doing too. It's just cops do so many amazing things.
Oh shoot! Well, what's the best way if somebody wanted to get in, check your podcast, check your books, make contact with you? What's the best way for them to do it?
They can search me on DannyParkNovels.com. I'm on the internet, obviously, Instagram, Facebook, and just shoot me a message. And if you want to do a podcast, come on my show, talk about whatever you want to talk about. I'll talk to anybody about anything. My main thing is positivity and listening to each other and talking to one another. Real quick, when there was an issue, remember when all the monuments were coming down, and on the base of the monuments, people were putting like ACAB on there and F the police and everything. One of the defense attorneys got up and started talking about that and how he enjoyed, I guess, seeing that stuff. And so we talked back and forth, and he actually came on my show and we talked about what our different sides were. And so that's my point, is just to talk and to listen to each other.
Right. It's not just to talk. It's to talk to hear both sides.
Absolutely. It's a debate.
I will listen to your side. Just listen to my side.
That's all we ask.
You may hear something you never even thought of.
Yep, absolutely.
So what do you want to, what would your takeaway about your show and your career? What's the one thing when you want to leave as your legacy for all of those other officers that, I look at them going through the academy now and going, man, I know how much things have changed in 34 years. I cannot imagine what it's going to look like in 20 more. But what would your takeaway be to leave with them, the ones that are going through the academy, just getting ready to go out there on the street?
Just keep being noble, keep doing the right thing, because it's easy to do the right thing. People will respect you. You are gonna, if you become a police officer, you will help somebody the first day on the job. I can guarantee it. And then embrace that feeling and run with that feeling. It's okay to be sad about the stuff you see. It's okay to talk about it and joke about it, but you are in a profession that is the most noble profession in the world. So stick with it and represent us well.
There you go. Yeah, it's and I think over the years we start to lose it, but I try to tell people when you go out there and you're interacting with the public, it might be the 15th mailbox vandalism you've dealt with for today, and you're sick and tired of taking reports for these mailboxes and all. But for that citizen, that's their one. That might be their one and only interaction
Yes.
with you. And whether you want to be there or don't want to be there, when you're there, you better act like that's the most important thing to you at that time.
Yes.
10 years from then, you're not going to have a clue who those people are. But I can tell you what, if they see you out and about,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to remember who you were, and they're going to remember how you treated them.
Mm-hmm.
We go to break-ins and things like that. And I think we lose the, I don't know if it's the impact, because we go do the report, do the investigation, all, but you don't really think much about how much that person has been violated.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody's been in their house. And when that ends up happening to one of us, I think it hits home and you go, my gosh, this is what those citizens
Mm-hmm.
are dealing with. And now I'm a victim. Why doesn't somebody reach out to me? And I think we need to really realize that it doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter how different your brain is, differently wired, what mental health issues you're dealing with. Every single person is worth something.
Yes.
Whether you're interacting with them on a law enforcement basis, or just your show because you want to talk to somebody and let their story be out there. But every single person matters, and
That's
we need
right.
to treat them just like they matter.
That's right.
So
And they need to treat us like we matter.
yeah, and unfortunately, we don't get that much.
Mm-hmm.
It is interesting when all of a sudden somebody says, "Hey, thank you for your service." I mean, I had a record driver. We were helping doing some traffic stuff, and I had a record driver pulled over in front of me, jumped out, ran back, gave me a bag. It was a bag of Mike and Ike's. He had a card in there with the law enforcement officer, the police officer's prayer, had
Mm-hmm.
a challenge coin, had a thin blue line bracelet, all this stuff. And he just wanted and a Chick-fil-A gift card.
Mm-hmm.
And he came back and it's like, wow, some people do really see that we're out here trying and we're
Mm-hmm.
trying to make the world a better place. So yeah, the news, and that's what frustrates me a lot of times with some of the individuals with disabilities when they're, autism, watching the news on police officer this, police officer. And many people get that ingrained in their mind that that's what officers are. And
Mm-hmm.
with you and the mentality of some of our guys who love the public, getting out there and just flipping the script and showing people we do care about you.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just a job, and we want to do what we can. We're pretty much social workers. We're problem solvers.
We are.
And it has changed in so many years, but we need to get out there and just take care of that community and don't make them feel like they're wasting our time to do this. And I know when you had Shane on the show, you were talking about the simple calls we get here in the county. Neighbors got an issue with another neighbor cutting their grass, 7:00 in the morning, and we get called. But you
Mm-hmm.
go out there and you interact with them. Don't make them feel foolish for calling you. You just do your job.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, but I'm
100%.
appreciative of you. So appreciative of what you're doing. Again, tell everybody if they want to get in touch with you, give them the way to get in touch with you.
Go to DannyImpartNovels.com. You can get to my podcasts. You can send me a message. You can send me a letter, email, whatever you want to do. DannyImpartNovels.com.
Awesome. And if you can't get there, contact me, Tim Sutton. You go to my website. It's a-betterunderstanding.com, or you can look me up with the show, A New Perspective, Tim Sutton. Please reach out and be glad to put you in contact with Jamie. So thanks, Jamie, for being here. Hopefully we can do this again.
Absolutely,
And,
Tim. Thank you.
We'll see you at work.
All right, man. Take
All
care.
right, brother.
All right. See ya.
Everybody, I want to thank y'all for being here. And I know it's a little kind of different topic, but in reality, it's trying to go out there and make the world a better place and help people understand what our job is. And then we're not all out there doing the stuff you see on the news. We're out there trying to help families and help individuals. Some of us, work with this population, that population, but law enforcement in general, we are here for everybody. And we just need to get all the officers to understand our role and what we should be doing in the communities. And just hopefully trying to give you a new perspective of what officers do on a daily basis and the things we deal with. And then if you got any suggestions how we can make the communities better, let me know. We did have the event at the Diamond a couple of weeks ago. Wonderful turnout for our nonprofit, a betterunderstanding.org. And you can look it up online or look me up online And I just appreciate everybody being here. And Dad, I love you. Thanks for watching.